The Poet and the Pugilist. Papi, look out! An angry wasp whizzed past my head from somewhere inside the sapodilla tree, whose fruit I was helping my father pick. I bolted, swatting the air around my head, shooing the swarming inferno that my 8-year-old mind immediately created, and I didn't stop until I reached the house. Look out for what? The wasp, I squealed. La vipa! Cuidado! I peeked from inside the sliding door of my house. My father hadn't moved. A couple of wasps buzzed around him. My dad, the man's man, with the bulging arms and the torn white undershirt, he just shook his head. You think I'm scared of some little bug? Some bichito? Mira, they're the ones who should be afraid of me. I eat those things for breakfast. I mean, let's see, where is it? He swatted at the tree, inviting a fight with the nest. I was sure if he got one of those powerful hands on one, he'd rip the stinger off just for the indignity. And he'd force the bugger between his teeth and crush it between his molars. And at that moment, I actually felt bad for the wasp. The lesson that day, a man is not afraid of bugs. This is my image of a man. This is my image of a father. It is a statue of my dad, Fernando Frías, sculpted in his prime, cast in bronze, and set upon a granite pedestal in the Central Park of my lifetime. And it casts a very long shadow. As a boy, I would sit in his lap to watch boxing. We cheered when one fighter would knock down the other, but also when the one on the ground popped back up. It's not about being knocked down. It's about knowing how to stand back up, he would say, and still says. It's something his father taught him and he taught me. And I believe in a lesson learned through generations. The day 5 robbers broke into his jewelry store, the one he owned in Carroll City for 20 years, he stood his ground behind the counter when the one with the gun told him to empty the display. When the gunman jumped the showcase, my father grabbed him, and they wrestled to the ground. When the gun went off, and blood shot from my father's arm, the gunman stood up, stunned. And that's when my father jumped to his feet. And with a punch I'm sure was as strong as any we ever watched during a boxing match, he launched the thief into a glass showcase. My dad came home with his arm in a sling that night. And the next day, he went back to the store with his arm in that sling. But to me, the image of a man and a father is more than a fighter. My dad also writes his own limericks, his poesias. A man with a 6th grade education can hear the music and words, the cadence and language. Even though his voice is this uneven baritone. Now, that never stopped him from reciting for family and friends, and complete strangers for that matter. And it never kept him from breaking out into song, because he knows it's not the inspiration. It's the inspiration, not the song itself, that captivates a crowd. I used to shrink in my seat whenever he started up, completely embarrassed, but a little awestruck too. And he taught me there are times when a man must cry. Like the day when his mother, Abuela, died at the age of 86. He turned from her hospital bed, pulled me tight to him, and sobbed. We've lost our viejita, Papa. And there are times to cry with joy, dignified, but nonetheless. Like on the day the son who was afraid of wasps stood in front of a crowd of more than 200 people to debut his first book. The old man, El Viejo, was in the front row with tears in his eyes. This is the image of a man, of a father, that I believe in and strive for. The poet and the pugilist, the soft and the hard. And it's an image I know that he crafted for my benefit. because surely there were times he was unafraid, he was unsure or afraid or unwilling. But he never let it show. Not when he was faced with a common garden wasp or a common criminal. Now, when my daughters squeal that a lizard has slipped into the house or that a long-legged spider climbed out of the shower drain, I understand why my father chased that wasp so ferociously. My daughters will come running with terror in their eyes, dive behind me and point towards the wriggling reptile or the alien arachnid, because they know I'll crush the spider with my bare hands and chuck the lizard out the door without any hesitation. They do not know that I hate the crunch of a spider's exoskeleton. And that I hope every time not to accidentally tear off the lizard's gross tail. This I keep from them, for I am the lizard catcher. I am the spider hunter. I am Dad.